Welcome back to Legislative Lens, People and Policy. Today's episode is a special one. I'm excited to do something a little different by sitting down with 4 fellow first-year legislators to reflect on our very first year serving as state representatives. We'll talk about what surprised us most, what we've learned, the challenges we faced, and the moments that made us proud, both at the State House and back in our districts. It's a honest, reflective conversation about stepping into this level of public service, learning on the job, and what it truly means to represent our communities during that critical first year. We began this legislative session as a class of 19 first-year legislators, 15 Democrats and 4 Republicans. Over the course of the year, we had two special elections, brought our class to a total of 21. Joining me today are Reps Hannah Bowen of Beverly, who represents the 6th Essex District, and was sworn in at the end of May following a special election. Rep Hadley Luddy of Orleans, who represents the 4th Barnstable District, and Rep Thomas Moakley of Falmouth, representing Barnstable, Dukes, and Nantucket District, and Rep Sylvia of Fairhaven, who represents the 10th Bristol District. Mark has been on the podcast before, and many of our listeners in Plymouth will know him as Plymouth's former town manager. I'm truly grateful to share this conversation with colleagues who have become true partners in the work and friendship. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules, and welcome to the podcast, Hannah, Hadley, Thomas, and Mark. Thanks for joining me.
Pleasure to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. I know everyone is really busy, but I like to start off every episode kind of with a level set. And so I'm hoping that each of you can give us a little bit of background on what you're doing before you were elected as state rep and kind of your motivation. I know we're really all very long-winded, and so am I. And so if we can try to keep these short, I will start with Mark since he's in the studio with me, and then we'll kind of go around.
Sure. And I promise to be brief.
Yes. And people in Plymouth know you.
Yes. I spent a good portion of my career in the public sector at the local and state level. And then prior to being elected rep, I was an executive at a solar development company based in Massachusetts.
Awesome. Hadley?
Sure. So I've spent about the last 30 years working primarily in nonprofit organizations and focused mostly on human service and social community needs, and was thrilled to jump into political life and legislative leadership with this opportunity when the local rep here retired after 18 years. Thanks for having us.
Oh, thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Hannah?
Yeah, so I'm up on the North Shore, and I moved back here only about 8 years ago, and coming up on. And had been working all over, actually, in global policy. Like Hadley had been working mostly in nonprofits, and then got involved in local government. So pretty quickly after moving back, got really involved in the city of Beverly and became a city councilor. In 2021 was elected and was juggling that with running a community mediation center for the North Shore. So mediation skills and local government translate very nicely into this new.
It's a perfect pairing. Thomas?
Hi. Again, sorry for my voice. Hope it's not too grating for your listeners. Just getting over a little bit of sickness. But so before I ran to represent Falmouth, Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket, and the town of Gosnold, I was an assistant district attorney for the Cape and Islands, covering largely the same area, coincidentally.
Well, that makes it nice and easy, and you know a lot of the people, so that's awesome. And then most of my listeners know my background, higher ed, fundraising, as well as I was on our school committee here in Plymouth for 13 and a half years. So that's, I grew up here and moved back myself too many years ago, probably double the amount of Hannah, or not too many, but very long. And so was just really excited when the position opened and our state rep decided to do something else with his future. So now that we all kind of know, everyone knows a little bit about each other, and we have a lot of questions, a lot of space to cover. So not everyone has to answer every question. So feel free to pass on anything, but just want to give everyone an opportunity to really reflect on kind of this year. I know for me, I've been doing a lot of thought about the experience and what I've learned and, what to do different. And so that's where I'm really hoping we can bring this conversation to. So how has that transition been? We did that from our campaigning to our first months to, now we've been in this for a year. Hannah, you have not since you're, what is this? What month is this for you, Hannah?
Like 7, 8, it's a blur. But yeah, coming in a special election, like I went from working a full-time job and being a city councilor part-time and campaigning to literally overnight resigning the full-time role and taking this on full-time. So it was a literal, one night I was one thing, the next day something else.
Yeah.
So it's been a transition for sure.
Right. I think it's a transition for everybody. I mean, everything it's different.
For sure.
So what kind of surprised you the most? I think this is the question that probably everybody wants to answer, but whoever wants to go first.
I'll go first. So I think from a kind of a process perspective, our schedule, when do we have formal, when do we have informal? Like I had a certain assumption that it was going to be a certain way, and it's a little different. So just at least initially getting used to that, because a lot of your constituents will say, well, how many days are you up in Boston? And we say, well, it's whenever we have a formal session. But, Speaker would like us and encourages us to be in the district. Most of us believe that's the best way to be an effective rep. So at least for me, I think that was the one thing that was, I didn't know what to expect. Yeah. And so when you walk in and, there's a process, and adjusting to that process is probably for me the biggest transition.
Yeah. I think that schedule piece that you mentioned that's a piece for me. I mean, having always kind of worked in 9 to 5, always after those 9 to 5s too, but this is very different from 9 to 5. It's like you've got to put your own structure around it, which can make it difficult, an interesting transition for a type A personality.
Yeah, we're independent contractors, right? We own our own small business, which is being a state rep.
Exactly. Anybody else have a surprise?
And we don't have a single boss. I'm used to being in an office where there was some form of hierarchy, whether it was a small team or a big team. And now we have many, many, many bosses and none on some days. It feels like. So it really is like knowing how to be responsive to your entire district and to all the other actors in state government is tricky. It's, a lot of different different angles to look at.
And in the other direction too, what's a new experience for me is being a boss. I've supervised other people before in my role at the DA's office, but they had different roles. They had different responsibilities and really I always was lucky enough to work with really talented people. So didn't really feel like supervision. This is the first time that I've had people working for me where their only job is to support the job that I do. So that was a huge transition as someone who usually likes to kind of do it all myself. Yeah. Cross the T's, dot the I's. I'm lucky. I have an incredible staff. You all know Joey is my legislative aide in Boston and does an incredible job. But it was definitely a transitional period. No matter how talented your legislative aide is, to just get to that level of trust where you're delegating those sort of responsibilities that are public facing.
I agree with you. I mean, in jobs I've had that had the opportunity to have people in my email or have my opportunity to do things, I've always I got this. I think we're all on this screen are very type A, and that's like the controlling piece. And that is a really hard piece to, things are getting done, but you're just hoping. But that trust is so important with our aides. I mean, we all only have one. So that's such a crucial relationship too. Has that kind of surprised you at all, that relationship with your aides? I mean, I don't know, Hadley, you all have great aides.
Yeah, I have to say, I joke around with people all the time, but seriously say that the best move I made was to encourage Sarah Peak's aide, Grayson, to stay on with me. And that has really proven to be a great move that was made. And so I feel like that definitely gave me sort of, I would say, an edge to some degree coming in with somebody that had already been navigating a lot of the work that she was doing. But at the same time, it was a nice opportunity for her because I am I've spent many, many years now supervising lots and lots of people, so I have become pretty good at delegating. And she's responded really well to just taking the lead on a lot of various things that I will work with her around. But it has just been such a gift. I can't say enough. I think we all could about the support staff that we need and how critical they are. I was just going to add too, when you were talking about sort of what stood out, I agree with sort of the unpredictability of everything, right? And trying to navigate a new job when you're not 100% sure about what's coming next. But I also always point out to people that one of the things that I wouldn't say it surprised me, but has been such a wonderful piece of this work is the camaraderie at the State House, the camaraderie among all of us, right? As new friends, as new reps coming in together, just sort of the welcoming environment. Not that I wasn't expecting that, but it's at a level that I think is just, I always say to folks, like, what a shining star sort of in our state to see the level of dedicated workforce and people that are there every day trying to get things done for the Commonwealth. And I hold a lot of appreciation for that.
I always find that really heartening too, Hadley, the camaraderie, both at the legislator level, and that crosses party lines, it crosses generational, like every single demographic you can think of.
Yeah.
People really support each other if you take the time to actually get to know one another. And when you have issues that are going on in your district, like, people want to help. They want to help you. They want to do the right thing. Like, I would say, having seen a lot of the coverage of the legislature, having not been in it before, when I was running, or even just, when I was, your average citizen, so to speak, it seemed like it was kind of not a super friendly place.
Right.
But so as far as big surprises, I would say just how good everyone seems to be, like in even in behind closed doors, so to speak, like, people care about their district. Everybody's trying to do the right thing, trying to learn as much as they possibly can about the issues. And we rely on one another to, like, find the right answers on those things too. So the camaraderie is key to success.
Yeah, nobody can be a subject area expert, and there are so many people that we have the privilege to be able to talk with, and whether they're the reps or they're the staff or senators or in the executive side of things, like, everybody is there to help. And that was kind of, I don't think it was it was surprising at the level of it. We've got people who are in leadership who, we have a little question. We're like, yeah, let's meet, let's have coffee, let's talk about this, to, other freshman reps, which I think really lucky we all have each other on speed dial to be like, I have a question about this. And, we've got energy and homeless and unhoused experts and, like, range of topics within our freshman class. So we're really lucky.
Yeah. And it's more bipartisan than I think even the press reports, right? If you look at most of our roll call votes, most of those votes are bipartisan. It's not this great divide like you see in Congress. And too bad that story isn't told. It's the camaraderie that doesn't exist at the federal level, but it's also in the policies that we vote through legislation that are much more bipartisan than I think people realize.
I couldn't agree more. And I am often telling people that, reminding people about, they're like, oh, dysfunction in Washington. They just assume there's the dysfunction at the State House. And I have not seen that. I think no matter who you are, like Thomas said, doesn't matter what party you're in or how long you've been there, people are there to help. And so, I've been really appreciative of that. There's one thing I want to kind of go real far back to the very beginning in the bullpen. I know, Hannah, you didn't have the luck to be part of the bullpen, but I thought I wasn't looking forward to it. I don't know about anybody you. I was like, oh my God, we're going to be in this big room with all these people. And I bought noise canceling headsets so that I could get work done. But for me, it turned out to be, I think it's really how we all got to really know each other and really know each other's staff that are still here, and to, be able to realize that we could just talk, that relationship was really built there. And I'm really thankful for the bullpen. I don't know about anybody else's experience with it and how you look at it. I kind of miss it some days.
Yeah,
I loved it.
I would say I was sad at first. We were all anxious to get offices, but after we got our offices and we all moved, we kind of all stared at the wall for a little while because we missed that camaraderie. Yeah. I still, every once in a while, when I go down to the hearing rooms, think fondly about that time when we were all sitting there together. Yep. There was no privacy, and it kind of was a good thing because we get to know each other better.
Yeah, it really was.
Once we all got sorted into our offices, it's hard to know who's in at any given time. The only way now that I know if anybody is here is if I happen to know which cars are there in the parking lot.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
But it was key not only for us to spend time together, for us to meet one another's staff members, but for the staff members to meet one another too.
Yes.
Those bonds that have formed are really strong too. Just this week, I was in the State House and I stumbled upon a white elephant gift exchange between the freshman staff with our aides. It was so sweet and heartwarming. And it's like, those things that are happening simultaneously. Because obviously the work that we do is important. The building is like a museum.
Yes.
And it's like a place of history. But at the same time, it's a workplace, and things like that where you get together and just get to know each other as people are really important. And those things happen in the State House, just like they happen everywhere else.
Yeah. I would add too, I think some of the camaraderie became really clear across like all party lines and all levels of staff too, when we were in the bullpen and people would come through, whether they were, reps or staffers or anybody else, and, bring snacks and say hello, like people really making that effort to sort of pull us into that State House family. I thought that was pretty sweet.
I agree.
So Hannah, you were there in spirit for sure.
I know. Well, and Beverly was represented because one of the staffers helping you all get oriented had been working for the previous rep from my district. So I also got a little inside baseball on what to expect. and I think just that idea that it's such a welcoming place that is surprising to people, whether it should be or not. I think one of the things I'm excited that you have this podcast, and I think one of the things we all are trying to do is let people know that everyone is welcome.
Yeah.
We have felt welcomed into our roles and into that workplace, but it's also like it's the people's house, know, and so I'm a little bit closer. Like I'm right on the train line. It's easier for folks in my district to pop into Boston for an event or for something than some districts. But I think that's part of what we hope is that whether physically or just in how we do the work, that people feel as welcome and feel some of that camaraderie, that like we are our government and all of our constituents are part of that through us too. So
that's a great, I think that comes up in every podcast that I have. It's that whether it's coming to the city or it's at least just having your voice heard or coming out and talking to us, we're all people. We're just like everybody else. And we didn't get into this to not like people. We all like people. We liked having conversations. We like going to events. We like to help people. And, it comes up every single time. It's reach out, come see us. We love that. I get the phone calls and I'm sorry to bother you. And I'm like, you're not bothering me. This is what I'm here for. Like this is my job to help you. And I think what you just said, Hannah, hits on that. It's the people's house. We are the people's representatives. So if we're not accessible, then, what are we? And I think we are so accessible, so friendly. I think we're very friendly.
We're very friendly. Just ask us. We'll tell you. We're very friendly.
We're so nice.
We are really nice. And I think too, to our freshman class, which has 21 members now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we have 2 who have special elections, and 19 of us came in together. And I think that we are an incredible class, not just because, we're all a part of it.
Or because you're the president.
Or because I'm the president or you're the vice president. But I think it's really about, we're just people here doing the work for, it's the people. And we want to have that interaction. And we truly care about each other. And I've really loved getting that aspect of getting to know everybody. And I don't know, it just has added a lot of depth to my life.
The freshman class bond was a real great entry point to recognizing that, like, there may be lofty titles and fancy offices that some people have and that some people use and that kind of thing. But like, when it comes down to it, every one of the 160 members of the House is a state rep.
Yeah.
They all started in our shoes. And so I think the entry point of getting to know one another as individuals, as friends, as people, rather than as the representative from Beverly, the representative from, Plymouth, was key to then start having that mental transition for each one of our more senior colleagues, whether or not they hold lofty positions, to just see them as people.
Yeah.
And then learn through them about their districts, about what their priorities are, hear about maybe there's something that they're doing, in Western Mass that would be helpful.
Yes.
Way of thinking of like some of our problems on Nantucket or something like that. Those types of conversations have been hugely valuable. A lot of the things that happen totally outside of like the legislative process.
Or during the process where you're on the floor and you're just the hurry up and wait kind of, were we voting? Are we waiting for people to vote? And I think that's really brought a lot of, I think budget week helped too with that. We did that transition to our office and we had budget week and we're all there for many, many hours together and having that kind of not downtime because we're always doing something, but you have time where you're on the floor with other reps and, like you said, members of leadership, and you're able to have those conversations and you realize, they do care that I have a question, or they do care about what I'm doing, or I do care about this. How do I help this person with this issue that's really important to me? And that goes across like to the Senate too. I mean, I have celiac disease. I think everybody knows that. I feel like I hold like a flag some days. But it's a really important cause to me. And in May, I did a briefing. I did a thing, and Senator Lovely came, and she's a member of leadership on the Senate side, and now we're working together on some celiac legislation, and we'll talk more about that in another episode. A little bit of foreshadowing, but but it's a crucial that those relationships are crucial. That we realize that we're just people and that we can help each other, and we have so much in common. But I want to transition a little bit to kind of the legislative work. And, we have these great relationships that we're all forming and continue to grow, and people we continue to meet every day. But I guess we'll talk about the committees. So I think for me, the committees have provided a lot of, obviously, maybe deeper understanding of topics I already understood, but also understanding of topics that I didn't have a background on. Excuse me. How do you all think that the committees have kind of shaped what you're doing as you're moving forward? Have they, or what is your experience like? Whatever kind of interests you to talk about committee work.
Yeah, I'm happy to start us off because
I'm
here in the
you,
studio, and then kick it off. I think the committee process and our membership on, and there are joint committees and House committees. The joint committees are where the substantive legislation happens, and I think I'm on Environment and Natural Resources, and Hannah and I are on Labor and Workforce Development together. And in both of those cases, there's a significant amount of work that gets done, not just when we're in hearings, when we're hearing different legislation, different bills, but even prior to that, the committee level. So we get summaries of all the legislation that comes before us. We have that opportunity to hear from people, and then we get to ask questions, and then we get polled on what leaves that committee and goes on through the legislative process. I think those two committees in particular have been pretty active this session. I think Labor and Workforce Development, we've had 8 hearings and 7 in Environment and Natural Resources, and some of them have gone on for hours and hours. Actually, Thomas and I have talked. He's in Judiciary when I'm in Environment and Natural Resources, and when they're very meaty issues, those hearings can go on for a really long time. But what you hear from people who testify many times may even give you insight and have you think differently about a piece of legislation that's been filed this session. And so to me, that's one of the most important parts of all of this. And with the new rules we have, there's more transparency. Attendance is taken and we get summaries in advance. Yeah. So at least for me and the committees that I'm on, I find it's been very useful and helpful to understand what bills are before us and what the impact is. Yeah. And, getting that feedback from constituents is really helpful. It's been helpful for me. And there's a lot of things that I didn't think about, especially on environment and natural resources, whether it was like rodenticides. I didn't really know much about rodenticides, or, wastewater, which is a big issue that impacts my district. Yes. So you have things that you understand and then a lot of things that you don't. And it's really helpful to make you a better legislator to see more broadly than maybe what you know.
I agree. And before we get other people's thoughts, I just want to say that probably if you're listening and you're interested in finding out more about committees, we did a podcast, probably May or June, I think, with Mark, and we had Chair Garbely on talking about how committees work. So just putting that plug in there, you can check it out. So go right ahead. I don't know, Hannah, I don't know if you have any perspective to bring.
Yeah, I think for me, I lucked out because sort of coming in when the session had already started, I was coming in not knowing what committee assignments were going to look like for me, whether I would have any input or not, and have landed on committees that really align well with what my district needs, what I was interested in, have some experience in, but also with that learning curve. So yeah, labor and workforce development. Just seeing the span of issues that impact what the experience is for workers across the state and across different industries. It feels like sitting in a seminar, like a high-level seminar at a university campus. But at the end of that process, instead of like handing in a memo or a paper, we're taking a vote on whether to change policies or whether to fund things that really impact people. So it's humbling and a great way to see who's working on different issues. So like I'm also on the housing committee on transportation. Those are really meaty committees where, I'm in a district that has an MBTA commuter line with like 5 stops. We've got Route 128 coming right through. We've got an airport. Like there's every kind of transportation imaginable. And so I have one little view on it, but to meet advocates who work solely on transportation policy every single day, to see what's happening in different parts of the state, it's great access to information to help us do our jobs better, to have those hearings and to have committee staff who are more specialized on a topic. And then I've been pleasantly surprised by the State Administration and Regulatory Oversight Committee, which is like in the weeds of the weeds.
Yeah.
Like, how does government work, and what should the state flower be? It's like a wide range of topics, and it's humbling to think about how many different issues we get to decide together, like what the state policy is going to be. But I think it has been, really helpful to have that structure. We were talking earlier about how this is a role without a lot of like not a clear job description. We all have the same title and approach it a little differently. And for me, the committees have been one of the pieces that has the most structure to tap into, or the most resources to tap into, less creating things from scratch, more kind of using those resources to help move things forward. So that's a helpful balance to something like constituent services, where any given day the question might be completely different and you're really like trying to figure out how to navigate things in a really creative way. The committees are a much more structured process that I think also I'm hopeful. I've been sending out hearing notices to constituents to say, hey, here is the formal opportunity, the structured opportunity to weigh in on this topic that I know we all care about. It gives that kind of like, you don't have to know how to navigate everything. There is that structure and that process that anyone in the general public can tap into as well. So I think that's been really nice to see how that works and to help other people tap into it too.
I imagine Plymouth has a pretty strong opinion on the state flower.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was up for debate.
I mean, why would it be?
I don't know.
That seems crazy.
Yeah, I would just add to the committee work that, for me personally, it's really been where I have learned the most and really appreciated, I'll point out, I'm on the Joint Committee on Bonding Capital Expenditures and State Assets. And so we did the final review of the Bright Act, for example, and hearing from all of our state institutions and colleges and universities about the importance of the funding and what it will mean. And just understanding the bonding process, which was something I didn't know a lot about. So getting more knowledge there. I also would just say that I think both providing testimony and listening to the testimony gives you just a great appreciation for the level of public involvement. Yes. It's critically important. It's such an amazing opportunity. I don't think enough people know about the ability for them to weigh in and how much their voice matters. And I've just really appreciated that learning and all that the public brings to the table.
The degree to which whatever subject matter committee you're assigned to influences, the sort of meeting requests that you get is really key too. Mark mentioned I'm on judiciary, and judiciary committee deals with a lot of really heavy issues. When you talk about, proposals for changing our criminal statutes in Massachusetts. So, you have a lot of victims of crime who are using their trauma as an example of how the system doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And they are devoting their time after having been through that to try to make it better for the rest of the Commonwealth in the future. That's really heartening to see every day. You have people, who maybe were wrongly convicted, that are standing up and trying to make it so that doesn't happen to other people. It's really amazing, like some of the people who get involved in government on the advocate side too. And like a lot of that stems through whatever committee you happen to be assigned to, whether you asked for it or not. I did ask for judiciary. But there's also committees that I'm on that I didn't ask for that it's been really fascinating to learn about, and I'm glad that I'm on them in the end.
Yeah. And I find it's interesting with the assignments. Like at first, some of my assignments, I was like, why that? And then others, I was like, oh, okay, that makes complete sense. And I think as we all talk about it initially on the surface, you're like one or two of the committees you're assigned to, you're like, oh, that makes perfect sense. This has to do with X, Y, and Z, or this is important to my district. But the more I think you sit in it, I think I've noticed, or I've been like, okay, this is really more important to my district than I even kind of, not that I didn't know, it just wasn't at the top of my list when I was thinking about it at first. Or the approach at which that committee is taking to that issue it's important to have our perspective because of what our community is going through, regardless of I think a really great example of that for me is the emergency management and preparedness. I knew it was important being on that committee. But the deeper way that we're able to bring our perspectives, I mean, it's like legitimately the Cape and Plymouth and maybe a handful of other people that are on that. But it's such an important way of looking at different topics. Like Thomas, you've got the tick issue. I've got bird flu, and there's just different things that we're all able to bring into that conversation that make the committees even more, both on a state level as well as locally, more impactful. It was kind of an interesting thing that I've noticed over the time. Anybody else have anything else to share on committees? We can move. I know we've got some meetings coming up, so I don't want to. I just kind of want to transition from that committee piece to the district. What have you all found to be, I'm going to say, do you have something that really sticks out as a constituent you were able to help, or a really rewarding piece of having for the first year? I know I really love our district work. I love state work too, but the district is where, our heart is. That's why we did this. I don't know, Thomas, I don't want to go to you, but I feel like I haven't started with you.
I think it's just like when there's a lot of organizations, individuals in my district that have reached out and that I've met with, learned about what their organization does, done visits, particularly on the islands that I never really knew about before. I might have driven past them 1,000 times and never really knew what was inside, so to speak. Yeah. People who are definitely not engaged in like the political process, as far as like, they would have never reached out to a candidate because that wouldn't have been appropriate for them if they're a nonprofit or what have you. So then I got to learn all these things as a rep. And there's one, it's Island Elderly Housing on Martha's Vineyard. They're responsible for several of the older adult independent living homes on the vineyard, which is key because, Nantucket is now facing a situation where their municipally owned nursing home its future is in jeopardy. And if that one closes, then there really will be limited to no options for people who are transitioning to that style of living in older adulthood. But the vineyard has put a lot of investment into keeping those options open. So anyway, it was really just an introductory meeting with Island Elderly Housing to say, this is who we are, this is our board, our staff, these are our facilities, just take a little tour, and like, these are some of the things that we're working on in the future. And then, they were talking about the lack of emergency generators, which is huge for an island in the midst of storms.
Yeah.
And you have older adults who need to use the elevator just to get downstairs, who have medications that need to be refrigerated. So, I took a mental note of that and was able to put that as, one of my top earmarks in the budget. And they didn't ask for it, but it was just something I was like, that's actually something that we can help with. So we were able to get the money in the fiscal 26 budget, our first budget go through for an organization that has never received an earmark before, did not ask for an earmark, but identified a very particular need that would have an impact, and we were able to follow through. So that was definitely a really meaningful moment to me.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
I can go last. I feel bad that, so I'll defer to my colleagues.
I would just jump in around the constituent work, that it's been a lot of fun for me to go back to places that I've, been involved with over the years and just learn more deeply about various issues. So with everything from going back to the elementary school here in Orleans, where all three of my kids went, to really dive in with them into the issues that they're having, and to work with the kids who have a little TV show and interviewed me and took me on a tour, things like that were great. But then, to the point of really serious issues, the thoughtful conversations with a large group of parents with children with disabilities, adult children who have a lot of concerns about their future housing and opportunities. What that meeting really stood out for me as an example of just how important our engagement and knowledge of, to Thomas's point, things that we don't know about, right? That we're not thinking about every day, that we learn about, that then potentially we can at some point take some action around, or secure funding, or do other things relative to those needs.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I would say one of the things that I'm really enjoying is just the dot connector role we play. Like Thomas, you're saying, I put that idea in the back of my mind, and then I see the opportunity for it. And for me, it is one of the biggest differences moving from being a city councilor, one of 9 in the city of Beverly, to being a state rep for the city of Beverly and part of the town next door, Wenham. Mostly the same constituents, but being one of 9 on a body, we could accomplish a lot and really direct, you see the impact immediately. We're each one of 160 when it comes to legislating and the budget, but we're one of 1 in our districts, right? We are the state rep, and the convening power and the dot connecting power that has is really incredible. So, back in October, as we were hearing rumors that there wouldn't be SNAP funding hitting SNAP beneficiaries' accounts November 1st, as they were expecting, I sort of looked around and was like, wait, that's not necessarily something we're going to have a legislative fix for or a budget fix for quickly. But what can I do in my district to make sure that people know where to go, know what resources are available, and know where to help? Because I was starting to hear from people who were worried either about how they were going to access supplemental nutrition, or how they could identify neighbors who might need help and get that help to them. And so was able to convene a group of the folks working on food security, but also working with families who might be food insecure, but not, visit a food bank because they get SNAP benefits and can go to a grocery store typically. Put all those people together in a room, and, they respond to their state representative sending an invitation to convene in a way that, for a city councilor to pull together a whole city council to send an invitation is a very different thing. So just being able to convene and connect and help get the word out about things is really a powerful piece of this role, and one that in the district looks different than it does when we're actually in the State House.
I couldn't agree more. I feel like my answer is a copy and paste Hannah on that. I mean, that has been my favorite, that connecting of groups within, that connecting of people, the resources that we, from all those meetings like that Hadley and Thomas talked about, we're able to learn so much. And they're we all went by these places and never really probably went deep and thought about what they were doing. But being able to then say, oh, you guys do the same thing, but you have this little thing that might, if you came together, it would be so much more powerful. And my experience with the food insecurity thing happened in January, like I think at the end of January, and we had some pushback some concern about the fact that our food pantries weren't connected, weren't talking, were struggling, they're volunteer run. So they were very frustrated that people weren't helping them and they didn't know what to do and what the other hand was doing in other food pantries. And so I'm lucky I share Plymouth with Chair Lenatra, and Kathy was able to bring in with me and a bunch of others. We brought in the Social Community Action Council and other groups to sit down, and we've had 2 conversations so far about how they can work together instead of in these silos across. Mm-hmm. And so hopefully, some of that is moving forward, thankfully. But no, yeah. I agree that connecting, the dot connector is the best.
Yeah, and I would say I love the district work. That's probably, we all love the district work because that's really, those are the people that we're accountable to at the end of the day. And so it's about problem solving and advocacy. And it's not just in the form of legislation or earmarks, that to me is very rewarding when we're able to provide some state funding to, in my case, Council on Aging to get a new kitchen. But I also think it's our advocacy with state agencies. Every state agency has a legislative liaison. And so there are a lot of times with cities and towns that we represent that they need that advocacy. Or it's unemployment claims. We've all dealt with those. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing that feels better than resolving an issue for a constituent when they come to you and they need the help. And I think that's a really big part of our district work. And I also think for our cities and towns, being that advocate and understanding what's happening locally, and maybe it's the old town manager in me, is really helpful and instructive for when we actually do vote on legislation. The more we, to Thomas's point, when we learn things that we might not have known, and people appreciate when we show up. I don't think I appreciated how much it matters when we take the time to go to events or meetings or engage with people as much as possible just by showing up. Even if we don't have answers, they are grateful that we're there to listen. And I think that's an important part of our job too in our district work is actually just showing up. Mm-hmm. That matters a lot.
I agree. And I think one thing that you hit on too, and I hear it from constituents sometimes, we help with unemployment, we help them with different things. We can help them sometimes, and sometimes we can't. Right. And I think that's important to know too, is that I think it hurts us just as much when we can't help somebody. I think that I'm always trying to figure out, okay, but if this can't work, then can this, and can this, and can this. And then sometimes it's just there isn't a resource that's there, but how can you find something else or a group that might be able to help them with their problem? And, we get the people who are like, I know I'm one and whatever, and you don't really care. We do. I mean, I get it on a Saturday morning and I get it, and someone tells me they don't have heat or they tell me they don't have food. It's like, how can I do this right now and fix this problem? And so everybody matters to us. Yeah. I think that's really important. All right, we're getting to the end because I know we have 2 of you have 12 o'clocks. And I just wanted to kind of take one last chance to kind of share kind of a reflection. Like, what are you guys looking forward to, both what we've done this year, but what are you looking forward about the second half, the second part of our legislative session? We'll start with Hadley. Sorry.
Hi, sorry. Yes, no, happy to go. So I would say continued learning. I'm really looking forward to the Mass Ready Act, the Environmental Bond Bill. That'll be really interesting. And I just would say, continued hope to move forward with some sort of local initiatives and challenges that, to your point, that you just said, really, how do we connect the dots and address problems and challenges and just continue to sort of lean into some of the unknown, where there is potentially some way for us to impact, future law and legislation and just community support in general. So looking forward to it.
I agree. Thomas?
Yeah, well, one of the things that I frequently say is, when you were in school, you learned about how government works, right? And the role of a legislator is to introduce and pass bills. And as we've discussed today, the job is so much more than that. But it goes in both directions too. And that's what I'm looking forward to continuing as well. It's like, it's not only you're the representative of your neighbors, your communities, at the State House, but also it goes the other direction too, and sharing with our towns and with our neighbors the good work that is being done not only at the legislature but at the agency level too, and making sure that nobody's left out of those opportunities. When there's grant opportunities, when there's individual benefit opportunities, make sure that those people, especially like in a relatively remote, small town oriented part of the Commonwealth like mine, that people are actually aware of the opportunities that are out there through the good work that the state is doing, because that's a story that's not always told.
Yeah, no, that's great. Hannah?
Yeah, I think similarly, like all year I've been having a little bit of cognitive dissonance because I feel like there's so much well-founded mistrust and disappointment in government at multiple levels, and it can be disheartening. And yet, like, we can and do so much. And so just being able, like, I don't know, I feel really lucky to be able to participate in this way in our government, and want more people around me to feel like they're participating actively too. And it's just like, it's so good for the soul to see people showing up for each other and tackling these issues together. And the fact that like I now get to see that as my full-time job is incredible. But I think really looking forward to sharing that feeling of like, yes, actually, we are an effective government. And yes, there's like really hard challenges and we can't fix all of them overnight. And we have to make trade-offs, and all those things are true. And like, I feel really positive about things in a way that is sometimes dissonant with like how the world feels. But I think I'm optimistic heading into the year that we're gonna keep funding important social services, and we're gonna keep protecting basic democratic norms, and we're gonna do a lot of stuff pretty effectively and together, and that I think is a message we need to keep repeating, and that like we really are. We have a lot more power than we think sometimes, and I say that we, like, meaning everyone,
everybody.
Yeah. I'm gonna get wonky and pick up on what Hannah said, because I think in specific terms, I think you're right. We're going to be faced with a lot of difficult decisions, whether it's lack of federal funding or protecting basic rights. And I'm excited for us to continue to lead as a Commonwealth on those issues. But I'm also looking forward to us addressing things like energy costs. That's going to be a big issue in the environmental bond bill, which is going to be something. And we're going into the budget, so we're going to have a very busy year. And my hope is we are even more active on the legislative front than we were in the first year. And I know that's typically the case. And then the only other thing, other than what we've talked about continuing to engage locally, is I'm hoping to get all of the bills that I've filed over the finish line by the end of this session, the home rules and any of the other bills that I filed. So I'm hopeful, for at least for me as a rep, that I can accomplish that for my district.
Yeah.
I'm sure we all agree.
To colleagues,
I know, right?
To support your priorities. We hear you.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I know. I feel the same way. Glass half full here. I mean, really excited to see what we do. I feel like I'm going to repeat most of what you said, so I won't. But I do hope that, we do get more legislation, that I am able to move all of my, as you say, all our legislation forward, that to a point that it can be. I mean, I think we all know that, like, I have a piece of legislation that I love and adore, but I know it's not in the place that it needs to be. And I've learned a ton. And hopefully I get the opportunity to refile it and we can work on it, and hopefully it goes somewhere. But I think we're all in that boat where we're realizing and learning and just deep connections, I think, for me too, also with members of leadership and other state reps and other all over, so I continue to go to them and ask them questions and know that, I'm a resource for them too. And, if I can be, but I think that's important, to continue to build relationships in that building and outside the building, to be, as effective as we can for our district. I know two of you have to jump off right now, but I wanted to thank you all so much I enjoyed this conversation. I hope you did too. And it's just been an honor to work with all of you this year. I look forward to working with you and continuing to work with you and to build this relationship and friendship in this work. So thank you so much, Hannah, Hadley, Thomas, and Mark, for being here.
Thank you, Michelle.
Appreciate it.
My hope is that today's discussion gives our listeners a real sense of what our first year as legislators was, the challenges, the surprises, the lessons learned, and the importance of collaboration, learning from one another and from leadership, and being fully engaged in this process of public service. Thank you for listening to Legislative Lens, People and Policy. I'm State Representative Michelle Badger, and I want to wish each of you a happy, healthy, and inspiring new year. Between this episode and our next, you can stay connected with us and our work that we're doing at the State House and here in Plymouth by following me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and Blue Sky. You can also reach out directly to me at michelle.badger@mahouse.gov with questions or ideas for future episodes. Thank you again for tuning in to Legislative Lens, People and Policy. Have a great day.